Hello, I'm Tara Short, founder and director of Green Adventures Tours, and also the main tour leader for this upcoming trip to the Sea of Cortez, which we lead every March. And I just finished doing a live broadcast, so I thought I'd re-record it, and that way those of you who couldn't make the presentation could watch this on your own time. Feel free to give me a call or email if you have any questions specifically about the trip. So again, this is just giving me nuts and bolts and pretty quickly, but hopefully it will inspire you to want to sign up. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, so Green Adventures is my company. I started in 2009, and we work with two primary audiences, which are science teachers and their students, and women only travel. And we have destinations from Alaska, Florida, Idaho, Wisconsin, Roatan, Honduras, Baja, Mexico, Costa Rica, the Galapagos, Iceland, Trinidad and Tobago, Tanzania, and Uganda. And we're adding more all the time. So the Baja trip and the Alaska trip are the two longest running trips. And the reason why we have all these extra destinations is because women like you who, after you do a Green Adventures trip, you go, where are we going next, Tara? And so these are, that's how these are born. So the mission of Green Adventures is to help people fall in love with wild places through extraordinary eco-adventures and to protect people, places, and ecosystems through ecotourism. So the goal is that we find people who want to come work with small locally owned operators, and the money directly supports their businesses and empowers local conservation in the places we travel. And then hopefully we will teach you along the way tangible ways that you can make a positive difference no matter where you live in the world that will help protect your backyard and the global ecosystems. The Sea of Cortez Magdalena Bay gray whale trip is our longest running trip. I started leading trips here for women in 2010. It's only, I think, since 2013 that we started taking people to see the gray whales. And now that is part of our annual adventure. So to get to this destination, here's where we are. This is the Baja Peninsula. It's 1,000 miles long. And you may be familiar with Cabo San Lucas, a big tourism hub in Baja Sur. We will actually kick off our trip in La Paz. That'll be the base for everything. But people fly into San Jose del Cabo. We go up to La Paz, and here's the Espiritu Santo, and then we also go up to the Pacific side for the great whales. And there's a better look here. So fly to San Jose del Cabo. We drive about 2.5 hours up the coast through Todos Santos to La Paz. We spend one night in La Paz, and then the next day drive up along the Pacific coast. Now this is a 3-hour drive in 15 passenger vans. So we do stop for bathroom breaks and stuff, but it does make for a long day, but it's totally worth it. So we drive up the coast and then end up here in Puerto Lopez Mateos, which is right on Magdalena Bay. And Magdalena Bay is actually a really large expanse of area to cover, and we like this location because it makes it easier. The way the water is, Magdalena Island creates a narrow channel between the Pacific Ocean and inland. So we'll spend one night here and then come back, go back down, get to La Paz. We'll get here around 4 o'clock, and then from La Paz we take a boat to Espiritu Santo Island, where we spend 4 days on Espiritu Santo Island, and then on the way back, this is where whale sharks are. We spend one final night in La Paz, and then on your final day, your 8th day, we need to take your group shuttle back to the airport. So getting to La Paz, there's a couple of different ways to do it. We start poking around, but the main way is to go from your departure city to Los Cabos. And I'll give you travel parameters so that you arrive during a window of time that, so you're not sitting at the airport forever. But also some people like to come in a day before, and I have hotel recommendations. You can come in a day early and relax. You need to get your own transfer to your hotel in San Jose del Cabo. But if you come in on the day that the trip starts, there'll be a shuttle waiting for you at the airport, and then we'll drive up to La Paz. La Paz is known as the gateway to the Sea of Cortez, also known as the Port of Illusion. It's a population of about 200,000 people. A lot of American expats live there. We don't spend much time in La Paz. It's just really a jumping off point, but we do on the last night take a walk on the boardwalk and watch the sunset. We go visit the historical church that was built in the mid 1500s, and we go out to dinner. But the Sea of Cortez is really the main event for this trip. Right in our own backyard, we have one of the most biologically diverse marine systems in the world. And what I love here about this quote from Dr. Carl Sabina, he says, what truly amazes me about the Gulf of California is how alive it is. It's islands, populated not by people, but by seabirds, sea lions, and lovely life-sustaining desert plants. And at first glance, it doesn't look like much. It's just, some people think it's just the desert. The water's too cold. But when you get up close, you just see all of the life that there is here. And this little body of water has a lot of history. Ferdinand Cortez came here looking for the Amazons. We know that the Amazons aren't here, but still there's a sense of adventure. And it is romantically known as the Sea of Cortez, but it's geographically known as the Gulf of California. And it's one of the youngest bodies of water, only about 7 million years old, formed from the parting of the Baja Peninsula from the mainland Mexico via the San Andreas Fault and seafloor spreading. But the reason why it's so biologically diverse is because there's a lot of sunlight. It's at the Tropic of Cancer, and there's an upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich water due to tides and offshore winds that pull this cold, nutrient-rich water to the surface, bring lots of oxygen, bring lots of nutrients, and then that mixed with the sunlight is just fertilizer for plankton. And plankton is the building block of the marine food web, and that's why you get everything from lots of invertebrates, lots of fish, lots of big animals. And another main reason that there's so much life here is that there's coral reefs. Now, a lot of people think coral reefs are only found on the eastern sides of land masses in the northern hemisphere. But actually, there are reef-building corals in the western side of the United States because of the unique mixing of nutrients in the Gulf of California, the mixing of currents, the constant sunlight, the perfect depth, the perfect temperature, and that makes it a great place for reef-building corals to thrive. And because there are reef-building corals, that means there's food, that means there's shelter, and those are really important if you want to have diversity of species. Now, the Sea of Cortez has about 900 species of fish, 900 species. And in comparison, you think the Great Barrier Reef has about 1,500 species, and that is the most biologically diverse marine system. But the Caribbean has about 400 species. So what's great about the Sea of Cortez is that you could be in the wake of these big balls of fish, a wake of thousands of fins, or in the wake of the largest fish in the world, the whale shark. And I'll talk more about whale sharks in a bit. But 10% of the fish that are found in the Sea of Cortez are endemic. That means they can only be found there. 1/3 of the world's marine mammals can be found here, including the largest animal on Earth, the blue whale. And you might be able to see the blue whale in March. It's not guaranteed. And this isn't one of my photos, but I've seen blue whales, and it's just amazing because at first you just see the head come up and the spout, and it's like there's the head, the back, the fin. It's like an animal that just keeps going. So these guys, they can get over 100 feet long. Their hearts are the size of a Volkswagen Beetle car. So you could swim through their heart. That's just amazing. And you can also buy mega pods of dolphins. This is where you have multiple pods of dolphins coming together to feed or communicate, or socialize. And notice there's no other boats around. And this is one of those. This is what I feel is really magical about the Sea of Cortez, especially here in the Bay of La Paz, is that you just have really great opportunities to have uninterrupted wildlife observations and to take photographs without there being tons of other boats and tourists around. And you get to see behaviors that these animals would normally be presenting under queue in like a zoo or aquarium. For example, this long-beaked common dolphin is about to do a breach. That's where they come up and land on their side and make a big splashing noise. Well, that's just a form of communication. And sometimes you can even hear them underwater because they'll turn the engine off and we just watch these megapod dolphins in here. It sounds their blowholes, that makes when it comes to surface. And you hear them like, squeak, squeak. You can hear them talking to each other. And sometimes you see moms with babies. We sometimes see humpback whales during March. And these are usually young juvenile males who didn't migrate to Alaska or Hawaii, but still pretty spectacular to see them. And then if you're lucky, you might get to see tropical killer whales. And the video I'm about to show you is not a video I took, but it's the company I work with. They were out one day coming back from diving, and all of a sudden, killer whales started bow riding off the back of their boat. So this is what that looks like.
The dorsal fins raising the water and heading straight toward their boat. But that's not what the pod of 20 killer whales had in mind. As soon as the boat took off, the massive mammals started playing in the waves. The killer whales followed the boat for about an hour, giving Howard a memory that will last a lifetime.
Wouldn't that be amazing? So it is possible to see killer whales too. There are about 400 species of birds in Baja, California, and we get to see quite a few different species on this trip, from the blue-footed booby, which some of you may realize that one of the only other places to see blue-footed boobies is in the Galapagos. There's also brown pelicans and cormorants. There's red-tailed hawks, ospreys, the crested cara, not pictured here, frigate birds. So lots of cool birds to be taking pictures of too. And then there are thousands of invertebrates. They make up most of the color that you're going to see underwater, from the chocolate chip sea star here over in the top left to the smart octopus to blue sea stars, and nudibranchs, which means naked shell. So it's a snail without a shell. And lobsters, of course, and urchins, and many, many more. So this is where our home will be for 4 nights. Once we leave La Paz and we take the boat out, this is the Espiritu Santo Island. Now, it's actually divided into 2 sections. This is Isla Partida, this is Espiritu Santo, this is Los Islotes. So this is where you're going to snorkel with sea lions. This is where your camp is located. And so most of our sites that we'll be snorkeling or exploring are going to be on the western side. And on the eastern side, we really don't have any sites to dive or snorkel here. We will do a cross-island hike, as you can see what the other side is. And usually the water is pretty calm. We do spend a lot of time on boats getting from one place to the next. But if there's a strong west wind during this time, that can make it pretty choppy here. So you should anticipate that we could have chop on this trip. But nothing that would make it like miserable, so to speak. But if you are sensitive to that, make sure that you contact me. So here's just kind of a standard map. Espiritu Santo, Isla Partida. Now, Espiritu Santo is a World Heritage. Well, this whole thing is a World Heritage site and marine reserve. So that means it's protected. The World Heritage Site is that it's protected for its cultural and scientific and anthropological significance. And so nobody can build, or there are no permanent structures on this island, so it's uninhabited. And then they have a marine preserve around it too. So below the waterline, the species are protected from commercial fishing. And it's just a spectacular, like drastic, rugged place. You wonder how anybody ever lived here at any time when there were the native people who were living on the island. But it's a volcanic island, and you can see evidence of that. There are lava flows that you can still see in the rocks. There's volcanic ash and conglomerate secondary rocks. So when we kayak, you can get closer up and see some of the more geological features. But this is Ensenada Grande, where you will be staying for 4 nights, and you can see what it looks like as you come in. Here are the tents already all set up in the dining area and chairs. And here's a view from up on top looking out west, looking from east to west. And the beach is going to look a little different. It changes every year, and this picture is a few years old. So actually the bathrooms are down here now, and the tents are actually lined up here now. It's because we have to give room for this dune to move naturally. So the park is really taking a lot of steps to making sure that the beaches aren't impacted too much. But from our camp, we can do a variety of hikes. You can see, look how lush it is. Right from behind the camp, you can hike up to go see cardon cactus and other species of plants. We'll do a hike at El Cardinal, so you can learn a little bit about the geology and more of the plants. You might see jackrabbits or experience yourself to ground squirrels. One question I always get all the time is, are there snakes? There are snakes, but we've never seen any at camp. So it's not something to worry about. You see, we're walking on paths. As long as you watch where you're going when we're walking and like outside of camp, and watch where you put your hands, you'll be fine. We've never had any issues with snakes. We go kayaking from this location, so you can actually take the kayaks out anytime you want and paddle around the bay. But we'll do a guided kayaking trip, and you'll go, kayaking through some arches. You'll get up close to the Sally Lightfoot crabs, blue herons. You might even see mobula rays jumping. It's a really beautiful, easy paddle along the western side of the island. And then after we are done with our activities during the day, which from snorkeling to hiking, we always do what I call going out looking for the big stuff. Sometimes we find things and sometimes we don't. But it's just a spontaneous whale watching or dolphin watching trip to go see what's out there. And a lot of times we do find the big stuff. And sometimes we have dolphins. These are it looks like common dolphins, bow riding on the front of the boat with a student reaching down to try to touch one. And then we also have amazing sunsets right from camp that we can enjoy. And then a 1-billion-star hotel, glamp resort to go to sleep to. Our camp is a really great location to teach people how to safely use their equipment and to learn to snorkel. So the main event here, if you're going to come to the Sea of Cortez, you've got the topside stuff we just talked about, but you're going to want to get your face in the water to see all the life that's below the waterline. And no matter if you had a chance to dive 1,000 hours or if you've never even put a mask and snorkel on, everybody starts off the same way. And we do a little snorkel school where we have everybody line up and we'll demonstrate a method or demonstrate a skill, and then they'll demonstrate that they know how to do the skill. And we start with just being able to float and breathe through your snorkel and do that for 5 minutes without any leaks in your mask. And if there's any leaks, we fix those leaks so that when we move on with your fins and other aspects of snorkeling, you are more comfortable with that experience, so that eventually we get you from knee-deep water to ten feet of water to snorkeling with 400 wild sea lions. There's a little bit of a freeze there, so I'm just going to say it again. So the goal is to get you from knee-deep water to snorkeling in 20 feet of water to playing with 400 wild sea lions. We want to make sure that your gear fits you properly and that you're comfortable. Most of our snorkeling is going to be from a boat, and that's our main transportation. So you'll learn on the beach, but you're going to go from the boat. And you can do a giant stride in. See, this is Alex. She's standing on the platform. And this is how we get in and out of the boat. There's a ladder there. The boat also has a bathroom in it too. But if the way we'll teach you to get in is to do a giant stride, which is jumping on the platform, or you can just sit down and slide into the platform, slide off of the platform into the water. And then here we go. Let's explore some of the places and ecosystems that you'll be able to see. And we're definitely going to have you see coral reef. You can see coral reefs at Los Islotes, where the sea lions are. But there's also shallow reefs right off the beach where our camp is. And this is a Mexican hogfish. And hogfish, kind of interesting thing about them is that they are all born female, and then the largest female becomes the male, and she becomes a super male, and she's the one who goes around and fertilizes her harem. Pretty, huh? You're going to see big schools of grunts. These fish like to hang out on the rocky reefs during the day. So there's the coral reefs, and then you have rocky reefs, which are big boulders that create habitat underwater. And so grunts like to hang out during the day by these rocks, and at night they go out over the sand hunting. But they get their name grunt because they make a grunting noise when they feel threatened. Usually people hear it when they're on a hook, but you can also dive down, and if you disturb them, they might make a grunting noise. And it's because the way they do it is they grind their teeth in the back of their throat, and it amplifies off their swim bladder. It makes a grunting sound. King angelfish are some of the most, I guess, elegant looking fish of the reef, and some of the most easy to identify. They have these long trailing dorsal and anal fins and this white stripe here. And they can be found in schools up like this, or you just find them in pairs of one or two. What's interesting about them is that they are monogamous. So you have these fish who mate for life. And also they like to eat sponges, which not many fish will eat sponges, and that's kind of an interesting adaptation. You have the Yellowtail Surgeonfish that you'll definitely see, and these guys get their name because they have this yellow spine. They have this spine at the base of their yellow tail, and like a surgeon's scalpel, and they use this to defend themselves. These guys like to eat dead organic matter, so they'll find them cruising around rocky reefs and coral reefs in the sand, eating like the detritus. But also they're opportunistic, so if there's a big spawning or if something was killed and there's pieces of meat, they'll go after that too. Of course, we want to see a lot of different fish, but you definitely are coming here to snorkel with sea lions, is my guess. And this is the friendliest sea lion colony in North America. There are about 400 wild sea lions here. It's a breeding colony. These are California sea lions. They are used to people. They've had, for 20 years, people have been snorkeling and diving at this colony. But there are rules to follow to keep yourself safe because they're still wild animals. We ask that people stay 15 feet from any of the breeding zones or from the rocks. And always you'll be in the water with a dive leader, a local dive leader, who will make sure that you are following the rules and take you to the places where you're likely to interact with sea lions. But when you arrive, you're going to hear a couple of sounds. The first sound is going to be the obvious ooh, 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 ooh. Those are the big males who are defending their territories. Then you have ho, ho. Those are the females calling their babies. And then you hear eh, eh. And those are the babies responding to their moms. And we want to find the babies because those are the ones, they're juveniles. They're about anywhere from 1 to 3 years old. They're curious and they want to play with us. And as soon as you get in the water, you may or may not have a sea lion right in your face. But this is a typical scene of a sea lion who's trying to either interact with you or figure out what you are. They have these really thick whiskers that they use to feel around in the rocks and to explore their environment. And they also have sharp teeth that they like to nibble and sometimes bite to figure out what you are or what your fin is. But they're playful, and this video is just kind of give you an idea of what it looks like at Los Islotes. So you don't feel like you're jumping into some shark infested water, which, by the way, no one has seen any sharks here. We've seen a whale shark pass by, but no one has seen any predatory sharks at the colony. You can actually hear the male barking in the background. But this is a juvenile who's coming up, and you can see there's a scuba diver underneath me too. And sometimes they'll come right up to you, or sometimes you need to go kind of seek out them. But the main thing is to not harass them, and you'll stay with your group. Obviously, this part of the colony is not a breeding zone. There wasn't a big male who was defending his territory, so I'm a little closer to the rocks than 15 feet. And this guy is just kind of playing hard to get. You'll see that, you know, underwater you have one point of view of, you know, all the acrobatics but then once I'll show you here as this gets a little closer, you can see the other sea lions who are just kind of like, you know, resting on the surface. You see the water is pretty clear. It can be a little bit murky if there's a plankton bloom, but for the most part, it's nice and clear this time of year. It is cold. It's going to be about 65 degrees. You'll be wearing a 5 mil wetsuit that will supply to you. You may want to even invest in a 1 mil short to go underneath. You see that they walk on their pectoral fins. That's one of the adaptations of sea lions, is that they walk on pectoral fins, where seals will actually undulate on their stomachs. Also, sea lions have external ears. You can see he's got little ear flaps, where seals have ear holes. But there's lots of fish here to see, and it's more than sea lions, but you're definitely going to want to play with the sea lions. And here's the sea lion that was a little bit more playful and interested. He was definitely attracted to my fins, and you'll have them nibbling on your fins. You might have them nibbling on your wetsuit or biting you in the butt. You might have them climb on your back or chew on your snorkel. It really depends. You can see the water clarity on this day too is a little bit more murky. And you see that I'm wearing gloves. It's not required by the park that you wear gloves, but I do suggest everybody bring a pair of like gardening gloves so that if the sea lions do nibble on your hands, you don't get any cuts or scrapes. And those of you who like to dive or do somersaults, sometimes the sea lions like to mimic what you're doing. But this one seemed okay just to be at the surface and entertained by me alone. Sometimes they're super calm and will come up and just present their pectoral fin to you. And you put your hand out under their pectoral fin, they'll come like right around to you. It's almost like you're doing a dance. Here's a sea lion that decided to use me as a raft. And here is a video of just some participants who have a sea lion interaction. This one's on YouTube, but you see how it's interested in their gloves. And notice that they're wearing life vests. Those life vests, if they're snorkeling vests, so they can be inflated if necessary, but they are required by the park guards. And it's mainly to be able to be seen from the surface. Aren't they funny? You just can't help it. If you wiggle your fingers, that it seems to make them attracted to a little bit more. Those of you who want to learn to scuba dive, we have a Discover Scuba course. It's extra, and I think it is like $290, maybe. I have to double check. And you can get the basics of like a land course on how to use your gear, the basic safety stuff for scuba diving, and then a dive master will take you in and you'll scuba dive at the sea lion colony. And it's a different experience than snorkeling. Not only are the sea lions, if they're interested in you, will act differently because of the bubbles, but you also get a chance to see how much life is down at even 20 or 30 feet. You've got scissor-tails here and king angelfish off in the distance. You're going to see barberfish and hogfish. That's a Panama crazy and a flag cabrita. So lots and lots to see right here. And on this dive, there were so many eels. Look at all those king angelfish. So this is an option too. The last thing we'll do at the island is to snorkel with whale sharks. Now, whale shark snorkeling is very much like I think it's kind of like a military exercise. And by this point, you'll have had enough water experience to be ready to snorkel with whale sharks. And the whale sharks are super gentle. These are gentle giants. Their teeth are bristles. They're more filter feeders. But it's about how we get in the water and how we see them. So what will happen is only 5 people with a dive leader will go in at a time. They'll sit at the back of the boat like this. And as soon as your dive leader says go, you will follow your leader to a place, because they're watching the whale shark. Let me back up a second. The captain will position the boat in the path of the whale shark. And then your dive leader, when it's time to get in, will say, get in, and you'll jump in and you will swim at the direction of the whale shark with your dive master. And it'll be pretty murky at first, but then all of a sudden this big head is going to come out like a freight train, and it's going to be moving right at you, and you need to get out of the way. And then you need to swim with it. And then how long you stay with the whale shark is how long you can keep up with it. It's only about 10 or 15 feet of water. And then once the whale shark outswims you, you stop as a group, the boat comes back around, picks you up, and you do it again. So these whale sharks are only about 15 to 20 feet long. Whale sharks can get 60 feet long. So these are juveniles, and it's still quite impressive to be with them. And here's kind of what that scene looks like. There's the divers here on the sides of the whale shark. You got to maintain 3 meters from the whale shark, and you can't touch it. You're not supposed to dive down on it. Each whale shark has its own unique set of spots. So this one's not tagged, but we will come across tagged whale sharks that are being tracked to see what their migration patterns are, because there's so many things we don't know about whale sharks. And if a whale shark isn't cruising, you might get a chance to see a whale shark feeding on the surface like this. So here the divers are around the whale shark, and the whale shark is on the surface just sucking in plankton. This whale shark was like 25 feet long. It was huge. It looks like it has fish surrounding it. But you'll get a chance to see what a dentist would see if they were going to be looking inside the mouth of a whale shark. So they have these huge mouths, but they have a throat the size of a golf ball. And they're just filtering the tiniest animals from the water. It's really amazing. Now, the last thing is, the first thing actually on the itinerary is to go see gray whales, but it was easier just to kind of tell you the parts of this trip, not in order of the actual itinerary. The second part of this trip is to go see the gray whales at Magdalena Bay in Puerto Lopez Mateos. And here is that map again. So here we were in La Paz. So yeah, from La Paz, we drive up to Puerto Lopez Mateos, which is actually right here. This line needs to be moved up a bit. And it's 3 hours away on the Pacific side, but in the protected bay of Magdalena Bay. And we take pangas out, which these are traditional fishing boats that are not during fishing season used as whale watching boats. Notice these boats do not have bathrooms or covers on them, so you're going to need to go out there with the proper layers that you need, like wind protection, splash protection. Anything that goes in the boat can possibly get wet or fall overboard. But we go out in increments of 3 hours or 2 hours, and then come back and rest, and then go back out again. And when we do the whale watching trip, then day 1, we drive up there. It takes 3 hours. We get there around 10 o'clock. We go do a 2-hour whale watching trip, come and have lunch, and then do a 3-hour whale watching trip in the afternoon. Spend the night in Puerto Lopez Mateos, get up in the morning, be the first ones out, and do a 3-hour whale watching trip, and then leave around lunchtime to go back to La Paz. And so it depends on what we see. These are wild animals, so they could be doing a lot of different things. And I'm going to show you some of those options. But to give you the big picture, gray whales will migrate from Alaska down to Baja, Mexico every year. It's the largest migration there and back, 12,000 miles. And they don't eat in Mexico. They're basically just giving birth or mating, and then making their way back up to Alaska. But the females who give birth in December will have babies who are very curious and big enough to interact with tourists around February and March. And also they'll be big enough to make their way back to Alaska, which is the most important thing. Now, the boats that are out in Magdalena Bay, like I said, are fishing boats, but they're community-based operators. So only that town is allowed to have permits to take people out to see the whales. No other businesses can come in there and steal that option from them. Now, by going to do whale tourism, we're also protecting Magdalena Bay, which is a Ramsar site. It's a world-class wetland that is a home to a major source of fish that are part of the fishery of Mexico, but also seabirds, and Magdalena Island is home to coyotes and other wildlife. But we go out looking for whales, and you might just see this. You might just see a whale back, or you just might see a whale spy hop. Either way, those we consider whale wins. But we have 3 chances at this, and hopefully we can have some even closer encounters. Now, just like with whale sharks, your captain will position themselves in a place where they think that a whale might come up and interact with people in the boat. So, we splash and we try to get their attention. And here's a baby gray whale kind of eyeing us like, maybe I want to go meet you. And so if they do, they'll come right up to the boat. If they don't, they'll stay back and just look at you and go back to mom. Or sometimes mom is the one who wants to come up for pets. So in this case, this 45-foot whale came right up alongside the boat here. You can see her eye, her big mouth, and you can see all these details, all these spots. Those are from parasites that when they get in warmer waters, and then when they go up to the colder waters, eventually fall off. And here's a video of a really up close experience with a gray whale. So here's mom and her baby came up to the boat, and the mom came all the way out. And so if there's a goal to kiss a whale, I hope if you get a chance you can kiss a whale. And she came up and hung. She had hang time for those kisses, and so a couple of people got to give her kisses. And actually, you got to even see like the baleen of that whale. How many people actually have ever been that close to actually see a gray whale's baleen? That's the baleen is this stuff right here. It's this stuff right here, which is like a hair type material made of keratin, and it's a filter feeder. But I've also taken the camera and put it under the water just to kind of see what was going on. And this one's called Baby Gray Whales Got the Spins. And you can see this baby gray whale just kind of spinning right underneath their boat. And mom right there, you can see her tail behind him. And then you're going to see her right up by the boat. She's just hanging out, getting pets and from Chris right there. It's a really, really special experience. And one of the things we learned, is just on this trip too, is just some of the threats that happen to gray whales during their migration. And one of them is ingesting plastic bags. And just by bringing your own bag to the grocery store or reducing the amount of plastic you have, that's a way that you can help protect gray whales in the wild. So in the big picture of all this, where are we staying, right? So here is La Paz. You're going to spend the night at the Hyatt for 2 nights. And I know that it's Anywhere USA in a way of like brand, but I really like the customer service that this hotel offers. And they've always been really good to our guests. And they've got really nice big rooms to spread out. You've got a lot of gear that you'll need to, when you come back from the island, you may want to dry out. And you can't hear a lot of noise, like, in the lobby or anything. So I feel like it's a really good, it's a really good couple of nights stay, a place for a couple of nights stay. And it's also right where the dive shop is too. So we don't have to travel very far to get to our boats. So when we're in La Paz, we spend 2 nights at the Hyatt Place. When we're in Puerto Lopez Mateos to go see the gray whales, we spend 1 night in these eco bungalows. And I mean, they're just, I would consider them 1 or 2 star accommodations, but they're really comfortable and clean and just what we need for a 1 night stay, to go see those whales. And it's really the only place to stay in that town. And then we spent 4 nights out at the island, Espiritu Santo Island. And here's a couple of details about that. So we do provide the tents and all the bedding on the inside. Now, the tents are going to be different in 2021 than what you're seeing here. The new regulations are saying that these tents are too, I guess, semi-permanent, and they want more lightweight pop-up tents. So we're going to have 4-person dome tents, but only 2 people in the tent. I'm just trying to show you that it's a big tent. So it's 4 persons, but for 2 people, 2 beds, and you can still stand up in them. But it's just going to look a little different than this, and you will still have the cots. And there's a nightstand in there and lanterns. And you still get a really wonderful view, oceanfront view. Where do you go to the bathroom? Well, there are toilets on the beach that we bring in, and these are the same that you would use in as a marine head inside of the boat. And so these are manual flushing. There's a lever right here. You go to the bathroom and you pump out your waste into a bucket, but you don't really ever see it. And then it's disposed of for you. All paper waste does go into a trash can though, not down here. We do have showers. It looks a lot like this, but without the toilets. And it is going to be pretty chilly there. So you will likely only shower once or twice, just rinsing off with fresh water, just because when we come in from a long day's activity, the sun will be going down, the wind will be picking up, and only those who are, well, I'm pretty much a wimp when it comes to cold water, so I'm the one that goes in there and does a quick freshwater rinse, but you certainly can do a whole shower. We have spectacular sunsets every night right on the beach. And there's a dining tent with tables and chairs. Sometimes we grill, but other meals are prepared, right in the kitchen. There's a stove and refrigeration and fresh supplies brought out daily or semi-daily. And our dining area converts to a classroom, so we'll do presentations there. And we bring out an artist who, it's a different artist each time. In this case, she taught us how to use watercolors, which I used a little bit of tequila as inspiration. We also have a tequila talk that we do, usually on the first night there, and then we just continue to drink the tequila over the next few days. But anyway, the point of this illustration was she's a scientific illustrator, and so she was teaching us how to draw and paint whale sharks. So this trip in general, how much is it? When is it? How do I sign up? Well, if you go to greenadventures.com, and go to destinations Baja, and then you'll scroll down and find the women's trip, March 9 to 16, 2021. The cost of it is $24.95, and deposit is due December 15th. And then you have installments. You can see that within January and February installments. We need 8 people to make the trip happen. It sounds like it's going to. We already had some pretty good interest. I think 3 people are signed up now, and I just did the presentation. So I think we'll get our 8, and it's a trip that we do every year. So you just can't help but, I can't help but get excited about it because it is one of my favorites. When people ask me, what's your favorite trip? This one will always be in my top 5, always, because it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get in the Sea of Cortez, and the animals are just really great. Those animal encounters are just really good for the soul. Like I don't know, it just makes you feel alive. I feel really connected to nature. And then if you do go on the trip, you should definitely read the book John Steinbeck wrote in partnership with Ed Ricketts, a marine biologist. It's called The Log from the Sea of Cortez. And he and Ed Ricketts rent a boat. They travel from San Francisco down to Cabo, and then around the Cape up to La Paz, and they're there around Easter. And it's his journal of that experience. And what my favorite quote from that is, he says, "Let us go," he said, "into the Sea of Cortez, realizing that we become forever part of it, that our rubber boots slogging through a flat of eelgrass, that the rocks we turn over in a tide pool make us truly and permanently a factor in the ecology of the region. We shall take something from it, but we shall leave something too." And that's what I believe that the Sea of Cortez does for everybody. There's something that we take away that changes us. But there's also a piece of us that stays there, that is integrated into that history and adventure that is known as the Sea of Cortez. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you know how to find me. Just go to greenadventures.com. I'm usually available on the chat, or you can email me, or you can call, and you can find the itinerary at greenadventures.com under Destinations Baja. All right. Well, that concludes this presentation. Hope to see you all in Mexico.